Welcome to the Noodle Podcast. We are Kate and Max, and we love noodling on what we've learned by accident. This podcast is a space where we share how we get the best out of ourselves and the people we've worked with. In today's episode, we reflect on times when there have been difficult dynamics and seemingly impossible situations where we've needed to be strong and say what needs saying. Okay, so we were having quite a good conversation last time about drama, and we felt like there's so much more to explore here.
Yes.
When drama gets big.
Yes. Larger drama.
Larger drama. Larger drama llama.
Yeah, no, funny images now. So I was thinking about a time when I was responsible for a team back in the day, and I had a guy working for me who I thought was great. He had responsibility for quite a few people, and he was a real people-oriented person. And I felt he really knew his team. He was really understanding, but he still drove great performance, but he didn't push it too far. You know, he was sort of, he was balancing. The harmony was there, the teamwork was there, the team dynamic was there. And I was happy that, while we might not be pushing as fast as we could, that we were moving in the right direction. Then comes along one of those lovely organisational change moments where everyone does a bit of a switcheroo, and suddenly I'm not sitting in the operations seat, I'm now sitting in a different seat, and somebody else took over. And they really didn't like the guy I used to have working for me.
They didn't like him?
Well, they didn't like how he was performing. I don't know whether they didn't like him.
Yeah.
But certainly the story didn't play out well. Let's just put it that way. And, when I look back at it, I think actually there was a fundamental difference in their styles.
Okay. Personalities were just clashing, or?
Well, I think just one had a very people-focused outlook.
Yeah.
And one had a very task-focused outlook.
Right. Yeah.
And so language difference, behavioural difference in approach, style, all that sort of stuff. But it played out in a very unpleasant dynamic between the two of them. Started to have a bit of an echo effect through the team. But also I was having to sit there alongside and watch this thinking, well, that person used to work good for me. How do I help them to navigate this? How do I stay also working in partnership with my colleague who's now taking responsibility for this, and not, so I don't want to use the phrase throw him under the bus, or is it me? I mean, yeah.
Yes. So when we were talking about the drama triangle in the last episode, that's going on here in quite a few iterations, isn't it? What happened in the end?
Oh, it was a sad story.
Oh, okay.
He moved on.
All right.
He moved on, but he did well. He moved
Off in
on.
the way, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. He moved on. Somebody else took over. Yeah. Yes.
And so a lot of that is, where does the truth lie? It's perspective. Your perspective, his perspective, the new manager's perspective, all valid. When I've helped people at around performance rating time,
it's a bit contentious.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, especially if a manager, maybe a new manager, has taken on an existing team that has been rated very highly by their previous manager.
Yeah.
And they've said, what do I do? I actually don't think any of them comes up to scratch. This isn't the level at which I expect people to work.
Yeah.
But they've been told for the past 2-3 years that they're top performers. What do I do with that?
Yes.
And again, it's perspective, not necessarily drama, but it is around performance. How do you get people to perform differently to your standard if that's different to somebody else, which it's going to be? People do have different personalities. They do come from different spaces, don't they?
Yeah, but it does create a drama, I think, if it's not done well.
Right.
So I think that's where it can feel like you might be being victimised. So we're back to that, or might be being bullied because the last manager thought I was all right. What's wrong with you?
Why have they got it in for me?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm good. Bullying is such an interesting concept, isn't it? Because does the bully believe that they're bullying, or do they believe they're seeing something where there's a gap between what's happening and what they think should be happening? yes, they might use language or an approach that might be too forceful. If you're on the receiving end of being told you're not quite good enough, it could be that you're saying, you're the problem, not me. Why are you doing this to me? And again, you're into that persecutor victim perspective, aren't you?
I mean, this is in the space of performance. We have to be careful that we're not saying that bullying doesn't go on for other reasons. So totally get that. But I think in the context of what's good work look like and what is expected of you in a role, this expectation space is a really tough space, and a lot of drama falls out of that. And I think one of the organisations that we work with has got ways of working. One of their phrases is around courageous kindness, which I love. This idea that in order for you to be kind, it isn't kind if you tell somebody they're doing something that isn't good enough or is tricky or counterproductive.
If their behaviour isn't okay or is having a negative impact, is it kinder to tell them or not to tell them? What's the
kinder
principle?
to tell them, tell them. But you have to be courageous.
Yes.
And it's kind to tell them, and it's unkind not to tell them.
Right.
That you're having a negative impact on people, or this is affecting your performance or other people's performance. But I think we always find that hard.
So that's the principle of the Johari window, is opening somebody's awareness or increasing their awareness as to what they're doing and the impact it's having, but to do it in a way that feels productive and not reductive. So how do you, and we've talked about this before, psychological safety, how do you make sure everyone's on the same page? Because we've known a situation where someone's felt like the whole team has ganged up on them in a very, public arena to tell them exactly what they thought this person was doing that was wrong. It was a horrible experience for them. I think it sat with them and still does.
Yes.
So what's the difference between using courageous kindness to let somebody know that maybe what they're doing is not having the desired effect, it's the opposite, and just ganging up on someone? What needs to be in place?
Well, I'm thinking about the obvious thing would be that courageous kindness, if it can be done, should be done on a one-to-one basis, so that you're not exposing people to that embarrassment or discomfort of I didn't know. So it's got to be from someone that you trust and someone that you have confidence in and you believe in. So you've got to have good rapport with somebody. And I think in a team context, you have to build up towards that, don't you? I think you have to build the team's that behavioural muscle, as it were, to say, how good are we at giving one another feedback? So you might want to start with appreciative inquiry and start with what do I value in each of you? So you start to build that positive vibe around, you do value me, before you then say things like, and what would be really helpful would be if you did this differently. Or so it's positively stated in a future situation, not, we know when you... because we can't change the past.
I think I've been on the receiving end of that myself and that's how I was told that sometimes my directness or my getting to the point quickly, which I think is one of my strengths, is cutting through all the blag and getting to the actual heart of it, can be too blunt. And if I'm not careful, I can really put people's hackles up.
Scare the horses.
I mean, I used to. I don't do that anymore because I have grown as a person. So all of this is about performance, isn't it?
Yes.
It's wanting an individual to perform better, a team to perform better. And when that gap between what's happening and what do we want to happen gets brought out or articulated, then something can be done with it. What happens when in the workplace you've got politics where things do go a little bit underground, or this area feels it can't tell that area because it doesn't have the power? Weren't you saying that you were working with somebody who you had information?
Oh yes,
that somebody else wanted to know where it had come from, and you were really put on the spot.
But we're back to that thing. But yes, so I do still feel the pain of this situation. So remember working where there were two sites and two teams doing similar work but on different clients. And I was in one team, and we were behind schedule. Everybody was behind schedule with the operational targets. One office had been told they could come in on a Saturday and they would get paid overtime. We were told that we just had to come in and work, but we wouldn't get paid.
Right.
Yeah,
you wouldn't get paid
exactly.
at all.
Your face.
You wouldn't get paid for working on a Saturday.
Absolutely.
What, voluntary Saturday working?
Yeah.
No.
Anyway, obviously thought this was a bit strange, but anyway, so this was positioned in the context of, if we don't hit our targets, then you won't get your end of year bonus. So you need to come in on Saturday. We need to get back. So that's that stick sort of carrot situation, isn't it?
Yes.
So one team are being rewarded with money to come in and solve it. Whereas our team was a bit like, well, you've let it get like this. So, right, okay. Now, what does happen in organisations is, strangely enough, people talk to one another. I found out that the other office was getting paid overtime. So I confronted the person in charge in my office and said, we're not doing it because the other office is getting paid and we should get paid.
Mm-hmm. Strike.
So fast forward a few days in that conversation, of that narrative, and there I am, invited in to talk to the CEO.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, proper nerve jangling, like, oh my goodness, what's going on here? I actually thought I was going to get fired.
Oh no.
And what he did was he completely put me on. He wanted to know how I found out, who told me. So he wanted me to blame somebody so that he could abdicate responsibility for the fact that he wasn't treating people fairly and just blame somebody in this office. And I wasn't going to go there. I absolutely didn't give up the name. I stuck to my story, which was, this is unfair. You shouldn't be doing it. And it's no good trying to look for a reason. I mean, I was pretty young. I look back on it now and think, how the hell did I do that? So he was really, really powerful. And by the end of that conversation, it definitely didn't end up where I thought it was going to end up, which was lack of job. He accepted the position. We did get paid, but he also asked me whether I'd ever thought about doing a job in sales.
Okay.
But I would never have volunteered to go into that situation. But interesting, that whole, how do you hold your integrity but get sucked into an organisational issue? It wasn't my making.
No, but you were standing up for what was right. So again, just thinking about the difference between, when does that happen at an individual level or a team level or an organisational level? What happens if you have information about somebody that means you don't hold them accountable for underperformance or bad behaviour? Give
me a bit more colour on that. Some sort of scenario that would help.
So here's the situation. Somebody very senior is creating quite a lot of drama, and people around him don't feel that they can confront it. He is very, very senior. Some people have left because of the way that he behaves. It's not acceptable.
Yeah.
But this company doesn't have what is acceptable and what isn't acceptable written down anywhere, so they can't really point to it and say, Mr. Senior Body, you're being operating against. And so his counterparts, his colleagues, aren't taking him to task for this, partly because they know that he doesn't really have very much else going on in his life. This is his world. If we get rid of him, then he's got nothing. And so that kind of over empathizing or just colluding in a way, they think they're being kind, but it's not that courageous kindness that you talked about. So the drama was going on everywhere. Other people are suffering because this one person isn't being told. It's don't be like you are, because it's too hard. And
so that you've got the ripple effect, but you've also got you're making me think about sometimes when people go through their career, and the more senior they get, the more wary people are of sharing with them the things that they need to do differently.
But they're just a person.
I know. Crazy idea. Here, it's just a human being.
Yes. But it's when they're responsible potentially for everyone's salary, which then means people's home life and what they're able to do, their options for how they live, can come down to that one person, can't they? Oh.
So if you are somebody who is responsible for people, I guess what this comes back to is, how do you make sure that the environment feels comfortable for everybody to be able to give feedback to one another and to you.
Yes.
So,
You've got to be a really good leader to allow that
yeah.
and to be open to it without looking like you don't really know what you're doing.
Yes. Yeah. So there's a level, there's a balance, isn't there, between vulnerability and saying, yeah, I've no idea what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So showing a little bit of, I don't know, but walking the talk. It's often the phrase, isn't it?
Yeah.
Don't just talk about being a good manager. You've got to do it. And it's when the tough moments or bumps in the road appear, you've got that's your moment of proof. Pudding? We're back to puddings.
It always comes back to cake and pudding with you. And pie. Okay, so we've got, again, lots that we've covered there. Lots to think about. Often it comes down to choice. What do you choose? Where do you allow yourself to be open to knowing that you could maybe be performing differently, developing, learning?
Choices.
Yeah.
Notice the drama. Make some choices.
Yeah.
And cake. I definitely need
at this time of day, we always go, my stomach's rumbling, it's time to finish talking and get eating. Let's go.
Okay. You can find a reminder of the concepts and noodles we've mentioned in this episode's blurb and get daily snippets on Instagram at noodle_space. Don't forget to subscribe, share and leave us a review. We love hearing your stories too on the chat at www.noodle.space.